All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PRL Performance Racing League Season 11, Round 14, our championship finale, our final race of our 11th season. And yeah, I am joined by our gracious co-host, Mr. Hoop. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
So, me and Hoop are going to be tackling the Tier 2 boys in their final race. Of course, the big caveat for this race, a double points weekend, so a maximum of 106 points that any driver could achieve if they manage to get the royal flush of fastest lap, pole position, and winner of the race. Now, of course, Mr. Hoop, I know you've been keeping an eye on the standings a little bit, so I'll let the viewers know how close the championship battle is between, I believe, five drivers are in it to win it.
Yeah, it's been a really tight one. We came into last week with seven drivers still in the championship contention in Tier Two. Now it's five with a little caveat. We think another driver has to show up for our fifth driver to still have a shot, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But five drivers within, let's see, 84 points of each other at the top of the standings. So let's see who's out on the track right now. Let's
I
hop on with our championship
believe,
leader Joe
yeah,
Bidome.
big old Joe, our championship leader. What's his points lead right now? He's got
He is at
a
a
66
66
points.
point lead. So he just has to keep it clean, stay near the front, and he's in for a tier two championship. But all those behind him, Tar Heels only 66 points behind. Villeneuve just 69 points behind. DRS Maestro, who I believe is joining us in qualifying,
Okay.
would be our 11th driver. He's in fourth, 81 points behind, and Marchana is fifth, 84 points behind. So if there's 11 drivers, and Joe happened to finish last, that'd be up to 86 points gained for somebody else. So it's a stretch for guys like DRS and Marchana, but it certainly is possible. Portugal is a very difficult track, and anything can happen.
All right, as we say that, we're going to stay on board with said championship leader, Joe Bidome, who is doing his first quali lap on the mediums. I believe he did that in the Tier 1 race as well, trying to get a feel for the car, not wanting to waste one of those precious sets of soft tires. Now, of course, we're not going to have any deltas to show us how fast he's going for his first quali lap, but I don't expect anything too crazy. Of course, Joe is, as many people would argue, the quickest driver in Tier 2 currently. But we're going to see what kind of lap he can put on the medium tire, and after that, I assume he's going to swap to two sets of soft runs after this. So coming down the final stretch of Sector 3, it looks like he's giving a McLaren quite a little bit of a slipstream to start their lap. So Joe sets the benchmark. Oh, never mind. The McLaren was on a lap. Lowecki, a 1:18.2. Probably got a nice slipstream from Joe there, but Joe only 2/10 back of that time on the medium tire. So a pretty competitive lap from the championship leader. Who is next across the line? Is it Mr. Rusty Oil Can? It looks like it is. Joe Bidome's teammate. On the soft tire, this is going to look like maybe a low 118. It is a 118.4, just ahead of his teammate, of course, on the quicker tire. And it looks like a Red Bull. Tar Heels is deciding to pit. He didn't set a lap. Looks like we have a Aston Martin who's about to start their lap. Mysterious. Looks like Craig is the next car. Oh no, that is his teammate, Heiskran. So Heiskran, the next driver to set their lap. Heiskran had a pretty solid race last week. I think he got P3, if I'm correct.
That sounds right. He had a really good showing last week with the reverse grid.
Let me take a look. He did. P3 for Heiskran, a 119.0. Bit off the pace, but first lap in quali. No issues there. He's got plenty of runs left to try and increase that time. And it looks like Joe is starting another lap. Looks like he's going to use those mediums for a little while longer. Marchena just crossing the line, a 122.2, not too competitive. Villeneuve in the Ferrari, a 117.8. Passes Lewicki by around 4/10, so a competitive lap for Villeneuve, but he's probably going to want to go a little bit quicker because Joe being only 6/10 back, the softs definitely have a lot more pace than that in the tank. Rusty into the pit lane. Craig about to start his lap. Mysterious about to end his in the Aston Martin. Down the final straight he goes. It is going to be pole position, a 117.5 provisional pole. That's a more competitive lap that he's going to want to try and beat Joe on. Around a second quicker is...
Very strong lap.
Yeah, about there and there for the difference between the softs and the mediums on this track.
Mysterious, just a reserve, but he showed some serious pace last week in Baku. Very unfortunate ending to his race with a little bit of pit exit.
Oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah. I do remember that.
He was leading the race at that point, so very tough for him, but certainly a lot of pace, and he shows it here.
Just gonna check the comments real quick. No problem for the comms, Ramsey. No worries as well, Craig. Speaking of Craig, I am on board with the Mercedes driver. He's about to end his first quality lap. Just entered Sector 3. Craig, I do believe, was our race winner last weekend, so he's coming off a strong weekend. So obviously he's going to want to build on that, try and jump as many positions as he can in the standings. Obviously, Craig joined very late in the season, I believe halfway through, as he did not own the game. But coming down the final straight, it's going to look like a competitive lap. A 117.9 puts him in P4, just behind Villeneuve in the Ferrari. And it looks like Mr. Tar Heels is about to start a lap, so we'll stay on board for Tar Heels for this entire lap as he enters the very tricky turn 1 on this track. Very easy to get track limits. And entering, honestly, Sector 1 at Portugal might be one of the trickiest sections of any track on the calendar. The turn 4 can really catch you out. An uphill left-hander. You really got to feather the throttle to try and find that perfect amount of speed and grip. If not, you're going to end up like me going into the wall in the Tier 1 race. So obviously, nobody wants to mimic that.
Yeah, I was going to let you talk about Turn 4, for sure.
Yeah, lots of experience there. Not the experience that you want.
Traction definitely at a premium on this track with the elevation changes. The car feels super light through most of these corners, and it's very easy to get caught out in Turn 4 or the downhill Turn 11 that Tar Heels just went through. Yeah, very difficult.
Yeah, it's honestly for the Tier 1 race, hopefully it's not similar for the Tier 2 guys, but I felt that the track felt completely different from qualifying to the race. The race, I started on the medium tire, it wasn't even the hards. As we say, a 118.2 for Tar Heels in the Red Bull. Decently competitive lap. Puts him in between Craig and Lewicki by actually 1/1000th of a second. So that's a very close time. But as I was saying, it felt like the track just had no grip. It felt like for the first few laps, those tires just did not want to turn the car. I'm not sure if it was similar for other drivers. I know my setup wasn't the greatest, but it felt like even on the medium tire, it took 3-4 laps for the tires to really actually settle in and start giving the car some grip. So hopefully the drivers in Tier 2 will have an easier time of it. And it looks like Joe is still going on those sets of medium tires, just driving around.
Interesting strategy for sure. He is pushing now. I guess this would be like his third push lap. But the softs are definitely a viable race tire around Portugal, so maybe just trying to save an additional set.
I was surprised about that, to be honest. I was expecting, the typical medium hard medium, but apparently the tire wear isn't too bad around this track.
Yep, soft medium soft is certainly viable. Our Tier 1 winner went 20 laps on the mediums before going to the softs to the end, so it is certainly possible. You just got to be careful of the tire temps going around here, especially on the left sides. And also, the right front tire does not like to heat up around this track, so very tricky to manage the tires, but also they will last if you take care of them. So I think Joe getting ready to save an additional set of softs in case we see a safety car late in this one.
For sure, and just to catch it out, Lewicki just set a new fastest lap for himself, a 17.8. That puts him up to P3, just ahead of Villeneuve and Craig. And I do believe Butler is just starting his first flying lap. Do we have anybody on a current lap? Joe just started another one. Joe actually just set a quicker time, a 1:18.0 on the medium, so a 2/10 gain on the medium tire. Rusty is just about to start his lap. Oh, and Mysterious is actually around on a flying lap here in the middle of Sector 2, that tricky right-hander. Doesn't look like the car has any damage, so he might be able to go again, if he so desires.
Yeah, turn 8 is definitely a very difficult uphill right-hander, super tricky, no traction whatsoever. Saw quite a few spins there in Tier 1.
Yeah, and Butler just said his first flying lap, a 1:18.5, so the slowest of the bunch so far, but Butler is a pretty quick driver himself, so I'm sure he's going to be setting quicker times than that.
Very tight field, all within a second right now.
Mm-hmm. It looks... I'm not sure if Rusty is on a flying lap here. Doesn't look like he is. Joe is about to run out of fuel eventually. Looks like he's coming into the pits now, actually. So, is there anybody on a lap? Mysterious just starting another lap, but he doesn't have any ERS, so I don't think he's going to make any big gains there. Everybody
might be on a push.
It said he was down a lot on his time. It doesn't look like he's using any ERS, no. So it looks like everybody is either on an out lap or coming in this lap. Craig is into the pits, Heiskran, Lewicki, and both of the Saubers. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a pause period here. Mysterious going almost quicker on his flying lap currently without ERS, which is pretty impressive. It looks like he may have a little bit more pace in the tank. Rusty seems to have called it quits for this qualifying session. Doesn't think he's going to be able to improve, I assume. So that's going to be maximum P6 for Rusty. He's probably going to get jumped by his teammate, potentially getting passed by Tar Heels, Heiskran, and Butler. So we will see how that turns out for Rusty, as Villeneuve looks like he's going for another lap as well with no ERS. Seems like the drivers are maybe just trying to feel the track out a little bit, try not to waste another set of tires unless they are confident to use it. But as Villeneuve's really the only driver on track, we will just stay on board with him. 4/10 down on his previous lap without ERS. Not too bad of a loss. But as it stands, it looks like Mysterious is the man to beat currently. Marchena not too far behind in the Red Bull. I did have to check. How's the Constructors looking like in Tier 2?
It is very tight at the top. So the Saubers are leading. That's Joe and Rusty at 751 points in the Constructors. Close. And Red Bull is just 21 points behind. So it is super close.
That's
just
very
one,
close.
Which I'm honestly very surprised that Rusty has called it quits if he feels like he can improve, because one grid spot on this track could mean so many points this race. And that could mean the Constructors.
Villeneuve into the pits. And yeah, I'm surprised Rusty called it quits. I guess he just really wants to save that extra set of sauce. Maybe he only took the extra, maybe he took the basic 3 sets and he's already used 2, so maybe he's a bit cautious and he wants to use that soft in the race. But it looks like our championship leader is finally on the quickest tire that he could use, starting his technical first flying lap, as he heads down the main straight into turn 1. And it looks like he bobbled a little bit. Couldn't really tell if he went off track, but the game didn't invalidate him. Let's see what his timing sheet is going to be at the end of Sector 1. Actually down a tenth. So not the lap that Joe's looking for here. He's definitely going to want to go a bit quicker than that. As he goes through turn 8, the tricky up-hander, or right-hander, uphill. Has he made up more time than he did in Sector 1? Because Sector 1 did not look like the prettiest sector for him. Now he's up a tenth, so gained 3/10 on his time through that sector alone. One full sector left for your championship leader. What kind of time is he going to be able to put down? Because he's going to have to save some ERS if he wants to go for another lap, because he's not going to have enough time to put on a new set. As he goes for a 1:17.7, 3/10 up on his time, but not pole position. He's going to have to save some ERS and maybe have another go. And it looks like a Red Bull of Marchena just started his lap. Nope, looks like he's waiting it out for the last possible moment. Lewecki has not started his lap yet. Craig on an out lap. Joe just finished his. Marchena's holding up. So it looks like every driver that's currently on track has not started a lap. Lewecki is the first to start his last flying lap, so we'll stay on board with the McLaren driver as he heads into turn 2, 3, and 4. Oh, and he invalidates the lap.
You just took that a little too tight, hit the sausage curb.
Yep, but he's going to have another chance to go at it again. He's got plenty of time left. Craig looks like he's going to be the next driver to start his lap in the Mercedes, followed by Joe, and then Mysterious, and then Tar Heels, Heiskran, Butler, and then Marchena. So that's going to be the order. We're going to stay on board with Joe to see what kind of sector gain he can make. Mysterious goes quicker, a 1:15.0, not much quicker than his original time, but I think around 700ths of a gain. Let's see what kind of time Joe can put in through Sector 1 here, because last time he was down. There we go, that's the kind of time Joe needs to put in, 3/10 up through Sector 1 alone. If he holds that time throughout the lap, that will put him provisional pole. I will check quickly what kind of lap Craig is on. Craig 3/10 up as well. He's just about to cross the Sector 2 timing sheet. Up 3/10, so it looks like it's going to be really close between everybody here. Joe entering Sector 3, up 3/10. He's gained a tiny bit of time through Sector 2. We have the Red Bull of Tar Heels coming through Sector 2. He doesn't invalidate, up 1/10. Craig's going to cross the line here. What kind of time is it? A 1:17.8, not enough to move him up a position. How about Joe, up 3/10? Provisional pole for Joe Bidome, a 1:17.39. What can Marchena or Tar Heels say about that? Tar Heels stays in P8, a 1:18.1. Looks like we have Mysterious coming into the pit lane. He is done. Butler about to finish his lap. What kind of lap can the V-Carb driver put in? Down on his time. He will stay P10. Lewecki is finishing his lap. He had a good lap. Lewecki steals provisional pole in the McLaren, a 1:17.1.
What a lap.
What a lap. Steals the extra point from Joe Bidome. That would actually have been an extra 2 points. And that looks to be your final qualifying order. Lewecki steals it from the championship leader, and he will be starting on the front row. Wow, it looked like Joe had it. Looks like Joe had it dead to rights, and then Lewecki's like, you know what? Is this a debut pole? I do believe Lewecki raced previously, if I remember. I do
I
remember.
I think he had some points in the reserve table when I checked. So this could be his like second or third
Yeah,
race though.
I do believe he raced in the Monza race. I believe he did. Yeah, I believe
But
so. I believe he
it's
raced in Monza.
two reserves in the top three, just sandwiching the championship
Yep.
leader on this grid.
Sandwiching
Should be
I
good.
mean, that's what Joe wants, to be honest. He wants reserves to be stopping his championship rivals behind him from getting close to him. So if Joe would rather race against reserves that will stop his championship rivals from getting anywhere close to him. But of course, racing reserves also has that danger of a driver who doesn't really have any say in the championship fight. If you race too hard, if he races too hard, you never know what kind of accident or incident you could get into. So honestly, you'd probably maybe want to be racing your championship rival.
It may be a little bit more predictable when you're racing a full time guy that you've raced a dozen times already this season compared
For
to
sure.
someone you might have not gone wheel to wheel with yet.
Exactly. You're not going to be as confident racing side by side with somebody as you have raced them the entire season. But now that we have a little bit of a breather, how about some predictions, Mr. Hoop? Do you have any predictions?
I think Joe takes the race and the championship. Uh, I think he's got that little bit of buffer. If he can make it through the first couple of laps and keep it clean, then I think he maybe not runs away with it, but I think it's a comfortable win for him.
For sure, because his closest championship rival currently is Tar Heels, and Tar Heels is starting in P8. So a little bit down the field, Villeneuve's starting a little bit higher up, but not much. His closest championship rival, qualifying wise, is Marchena, and Marchena is the furthest driver back in the championship fight, 84 points.
Yeah,
So
and we never got that 11th driver, so I don't think even with maximum points, Marchena would be able to take the championship.
there we go. So Marchena seems to be mathematically eliminated. So now it's down to 4 drivers to see if they could take it to Joe and maybe pull an upset.
And Maestro never joined, so I guess that we're down to three.
Oh, yep,
Not
there we
even
go.
not even one lap raced yet, and we go from five to three drivers. So
Hey, I'll make sure to screen share that, Ramsey, and I'll cut out the you'll never say this outside of PRL. Ramsey, Red Bull driver, Red Bull supporter confirmed. All right. I always like to take a look at the tier 2 chat just to see if anybody's saying anything. Doesn't appear to be. So now we just wait. I'm not sure. I believe Rusty also uses Formation Lab. I know there's apparently some bugs with Formation Lab currently. I haven't seen any in the races that I've hosted. So hopefully they're not too prevalent. I will say, for the tier 1 start, I didn't have any lights.
like you didn't have an overhead,
I
like
didn't
the
have an overhead light coming down the red lights. I just had to go when I saw other cars go, which wasn't exactly
ideal.
great. But yeah, we're off with a formation lap. So let's take a look-see at the tires. Lewicki, Joe, Mysterious, top 3 starting on the medium tire. Marchena in the Red Bull starting on the softs, looking to make up some positions. Craig in the Mercedes starting on the mediums. Villeneuve on the softs. Rusty, Tar Heels, Heiskran, and Butler all starting on the medium tire. So only a couple of soft runners. Looks like they're wanting to use that quicker tire at the end of the race, which is usually the quicker option, as at the start of the race you're usually going to lose pure race pace just because of the grid being so packed together. You're not going to be able to use the pace of those tires as effectively as in the middle of the race when you're probably a little bit more split up. But
I
yeah,
think The soft runner is definitely looking to take advantage early and get some early spots. The medium
sure.
runners, a lot of flexibility, but it seemed like there was a little bit of everything in Tier 1 where the medium runners would go medium to hard, as see on your... As we get
As we just
the
got the
AWS.
possible strats.
But also, you could go medium soft if you can make them last long enough. So it's all about taking care of the mediums and seeing how far you can go, but also not going so far that you put yourself into a bit of a dead zone where you're forced to make a suboptimal strategy decision.
For sure, and I mean, even in the strat screen, going from soft to mediums and then medium to hards was a 7-second difference, apparently, at Portugal. So you really wanted to try and make those medium softs work. Unfortunately for me, I was just not able to make them work. The setup just wasn't good enough. The tires just didn't last long enough for me, so unfortunately I had to try the medium hards. That didn't work. Tried the softs. Race decided, oh, we don't need to fix the yellow wing. That's not important. But enough about me. Here we go. Formation lap is ending. Let's get all this garbage off screen. 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and we are racing in Portugal. Looks like Lewecki gets a great start, 3 wide behind him. Marchena already up 2 positions in the Red Bull. Those softs paying him dividends. Joe stays. Actually moves down 1 position. Mysterious loses 1 position as well. Rusty up to P5. Let's get the intervals away just for a second, and we'll get the position changes up. Oh, and Mysterious has a little bit of a lockup, and down to P8 already. As easy as that. Lewecki, the only driver to hold his original position at the start of the race. Marchena hunting him down on those soft tires, followed by Joe and Rusty. Villeneuve behind him. Craig in 6th. Butler up 3 positions in 7th. Heiskran goes very wide in 8th. Mysterious down to 9th, starting from P3. And Tar Heels drops to P10. Not the start that he wants to try and make a push for the championship win. Let's get those tires back up. Marchena's going to try and probably make this pass as quickly as he can here to try and get the advantage on the softs. I do believe that is what Bass did at the start of the race in Tier 1. Started on the softs and pulled a very large gap at the start of the race. So it looks like Marchena is definitely going to want to try and pull that. He's got the quicker tires. So he's going to have to... yeah, a little bit of a bobble from him.
It's a little bit of wheel-to-wheel action a little further back in the field. Villeneuve and, I guess, Rusty were side by side.
Craig and Villeneuve going at it as well. A little bit of gaps between the rest of the field. The closest battle on track is Craig and Villeneuve. Rusty already 1.8 seconds back of his teammate. Looks like we may see to start a 3-car battle for the lead here.
Fantastic first lap, exactly what they were hoping for Marchena and Rusty.
For sure.
Rusty up 3 spots already, hoping to give his teammates some help in the constructors, especially with Tar Heels struggling, and Marchena with the softs already on the rear
hunt
wing
for
of
P1.
Lewecki.
Yep. Although Lewecki did manage to pull a little bit of a gap, but it looks like Marchena's going for it on the inside. Oh, a little bit of bumping and banging. Lewecki gets pushed a little bit wide, but Marchena makes a very important pass, but he gets a bad exit. Here comes Lewecki back at him. And he makes the pass, and Lewecki, just like that, takes back the lead, but Marchena going for the switchback. Both of these drivers,
race now.
It is. And Marchena should have the better traction with those tires, and that's allowed Joe to come right back up to the exhaust of these 2 drivers. And as Ramsey stated in the comments, Lewecki is very quick on these mediums right now, being able to hold up Marchena on the soft tires after only 3 laps. And with all these guys battling, Villeneuve has been able to get past Rusty and is trying to chase down the top 4 on those soft tires, try and get himself in DRS. But as it stands, it's a Loecki P1, Marchena P2, and Joe P3. Are we going to see another pass? Marchena's got enough ERS. He's going to go for it again. Villeneuve with the quickest lap of the race so far, a 1:19.9. Joe thought about it, stays in line. Oh, and Loecki goes very wide. Joe still holds on to P3. Marchena, let's see if he can have a better exit out of turn 4. He does. Looks like there's going to be no threat from Loecki this time around. Going through the field, Craig and Rusty side by side into turn 5. Little bit of bumping and banging. Craig holds P5. Rusty dropping down the order a little bit after his strong start of the race. Craig's going to now try and get into DRS range of Villeneuve. Butler and Mysterious having a little bit of a battle as well, with Heiskran a little bit further back and Tar Heels a little bit on his own. Not the start of the race that Tar Heels has wanted. At this point, he's not going to be able to give the fight to Joe.
Joe must have made a mistake somewhere in Sector 2, though. He dropped quite a few tenths.
He
on
did
that
almost.
Lap. He was right on the bumper. And now
Almost
Villeneuve is
out of DRS.
right there.
Looks like it's going to equalize a little bit. The gaps are a bit too large for anybody to make a move. Marchena sets fastest lap with a 1:19.7, 2 tenths quicker. Rusty makes the move on Craig, takes that position back. Ramsey informing us that the softs do drop pace around lap 6 or 7, so we're going to pay attention to that. Mainly Villeneuve and Marchena. Craig and Rusty going side by side again through the same corner. Craig goes a bit off track. He's probably got to give that position back, and he does.
Both getting the elbows out
into
turn 5 over the last couple of laps.
Yeah, these two are definitely battling it out. They're 2.5 seconds back of the 4 cars ahead, so right now this is their main battle in the race currently. Craig with a very good line through that corner entering Sector 3. And it looks like Joe has managed to get by Loecki. Joe out of DRS of Marchena, however, but he has managed to get away from Loecki. But is he going to be able to keep him from getting past at DRS? He does have a lot of ERS saved up, so it looks like Joe is going to be able to hold off that McLaren driver Villeneuve in DRS of Loecki as well. So very much a 4-car race for the lead currently. Rusty and Craig a little bit on their own right now, and then a 3-car pack of Butler, Mysterious, and Heiskran. And then Tar Heels just not being able to get that gap closer to Heiskran. And it looks like Craig and Rusty are going side by side once again into turn 5. Nobody going off track there. Craig gets him clean, and that's P5 to the Mercedes driver again.
That's a big standings battle, too. They're just 8 points separated in the standings. So
there we
this
go.
means everything right now.
Yeah, that means everything. Especially, I'm sure Craig's going to want to maybe get that little bit. Oh, and Loecki with a 3-second time penalty. That's going to hurt considering how close this battle is currently. He's definitely going to want to hope a couple of the other drivers pick up a couple of those penalties as well. But as stated, Craig started this season much later than everybody else, so obviously he's definitely going to want a little bit of those bragging rights that he's going to be able to maybe pass Rusty in the championship even with those race deficits. So definitely a battle to watch for. Craig trying to stop the slipstream. Rusty's got a good run. Looks like they're going to go side by side into turn 1. No, Craig backs off. Smart move. You definitely don't need contact there.
Yeah, for such a wide track, turn 1 is very, very narrow. At least it feels very, very narrow.
It definitely is. It's very difficult to even get a clean 2x2 in that section of the track. Realistically, you really just want to be one car, and even then, that's hard enough getting that corner clean. But Marchena, he did have a little bit of a DRS gap a couple of laps ago, but that has faded. The mediums are probably starting to be the quicker tire now. Lewicki is holding on to DRS, same for Villeneuve. As Ramsey said, it's a high-speed, almost 90-degree turn. It is quite wild. It's almost like, looking at it just from the track map, it's got to be at least 70 degrees. But Rusty trying to hold off Craig. He's got the ERS advantage. Butler holding off Mysterious and Heiskran. All of them have a good amount of ERS saved up. Is Joe thinking of the move, decides to hold off. He's going to be able to make a move later in the race because it does look like he's got a little bit quicker pace than the Red Bull ahead of him. But of course, he's got to actually make that move happen, and Marchena is not making it easy in the slightest. Everybody's relatively single file currently. Rusty and Craig finally don't go 2x2 into turn 5. And yeah, it's quieted down a little bit. Nothing too crazy happening currently, but as it stands on lap 8, although Marchena is leading the race, his championship rival Joe is right behind him, and Marchena is mathematically eliminated already due to there only being 10 drivers for the finale. But obviously Marchena is going to be thinking of the race win himself. He's going to try and maybe jump a couple of his championship rivals further back, maybe get himself closer to P3 or P2 in the championship, because I do believe that's only, what, a 20-point gap?
Yeah, it's still very tight for P2. Absolutely.
Yeah. So just because P1 isn't on doesn't mean that P2 is just suddenly not good enough. I will say, Marchena on the softs, he's definitely being able to hold up Joe with the DRS advantage throughout the whole lap. I'm sure once we hit lap 11 or 12 that it's going to be a lot difficult. And we also missed it again. Villeneuve got by Lewicki on the soft tires. So Villeneuve showing quite a good amount of pace, being able to get by a driver on mediums currently, even though he's on the softs. Those softs definitely should be the slower tire currently.
I do wonder if the medium runners, some of the medium runners are going to pull back a little on pace just to see if they can get a little bit more out of it and turn into a medium soft instead of a medium hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're pulling back just a touch.
For sure. And Joe, and Butler, the next driver to pick up a 3-second time penalty, quite easy to do here. The track limits can be a little bit, they can catch you out quite a bit. But obviously, I know Joe's thinking about the championship, but he's 100% thinking, I want to win this race as well. He's not going to just take it easy because he's got that big points gap, and he's going for it right now. Marchena held off as long as he could, but Joe takes the lead of the race. Can he maybe pull a little bit of the gap to the soft runners behind him? It's not going to be easy. Marchena thinking of going for the move again, side by side. Who's going to have the better traction? Oh, and Joe has a bit of a snap. He's going to lose too. Manages to hold on to P3, and just like that, from P1 to P3, shows how easy it is. You have one snap at these high-speed corners, and you're going from P1 to P3 in just one corner. It wasn't even that big of a snap either.
No, very easy to lose traction coming out of the hairpin, though. He did everything right up to the exit. He went defensive. He had to go defensive, but Marchena just making a really good move around the outside and getting it to stick.
He got on that throttle a little bit too hard, spun the rear tires. Oh, and we do have a position change. Heiskran getting by Mysterious. I do believe Mysterious had a little bit of an error. Heiskran now on the back of Butler, but we'll jump back to the lead of the race here. Villeneuve, is he going to go for the lead of the race? On the soft tires, here goes the Ferrari driver. Past the Red Bull. Joe holding off. Lewicki a little bit further back. Rusty and Craig still within DRS range of each other. Oh, and it looks like Rusty had a little bit of a rougher exit, which caused Craig to slightly tap him in the rear and push him. Looked like a racing incident, but the stewards may have something to say about it. Oh, a little bit of contact between Villeneuve and Marchena. Villeneuve does hold on to the lead of the race, but just so. Looks like the softs are definitely still kicking it a little bit. They're still managing to hold on with the medium drivers. And we did miss it, but Craig does get past Rusty. Actually, we did catch that. We'll see if the stewards have anything to say about that. It did look relatively innocent. But already 33% done in this race. We will be seeing pit stops relatively soon for these soft runners. They should be pitting in the next 3 or 4 laps maximum. Villeneuve, though, an 8/10 gap already from Marchena. Villeneuve showing some strong pace. And Joe, is he going to try and maybe make a move under DRS? No, he does not. Our first pit stop comes from Craig on the medium tire. It looks like Craig is thinking medium hard. We will see how that works out for... Oh, he did. He replaces his wing.
He must have gotten to the back of Rusty then and clipped it.
It looks like he tapped the back of Rusty last lap at turn 3, and he got some end plate damage. So looks like he's biting the bullet, going to the hards, and see if he can maybe put some pace down in free air. Looks like Mysterious did as well.
He had gotten into something in Sector 2, had lost out on a couple spots, must have taken some damage. He replaces his wing.
But we go back to the field, and actually Marchena, almost a 1-second gap to Joe. The medium driver's not going as quick as I would have assumed, but then they pick up a bunch of pace through that final turn in Sector 2. So maybe a little bit of setup differences going on here, because it looks like Villeneuve and Marchena are really... Oh, we do have a yellow flag. I do believe that's Mysterious going the wrong way. Yeah,
so
those
that
hards,
turn 4.
those cold hards are definitely not easy to get into temperature. But he does get it going again. But it does look like Villeneuve and Marchena. I know Villeneuve's a big straight line guy. That man loves his top end speed. So maybe Villeneuve running a bit of a setup similar to Morris in Tier 1, where he sacrifices cornering speed for raw pace on the straights. But even with DRS, it does look like Joe is struggling a little bit. He's under pressure from Lewicki on the same tire. Butler and Tar Heels in a little bit of a scruffle. Tar Heels up to P7 with the pit stops. So a little bit of a gain for Tar Heels. We'll see where that puts him when he pits. Right now, all eyes are on this 4-car battle for the lead. And as Ramsey stated in the chats before, and Mysterious, a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane from bad to worse for the Aston Martin driver. But as Ramsey stated earlier, and yeah, he's going to call it. Don't really blame him in the slightest. And Villeneuve and Marchena both into the pits. No penalties for them, so Joe and Lewicki continue. But as Ramsey stated, this track, it can catch you out very easily. So Joe's going to have to try and hold off Lewicki without help of DRS this time, and Lewicki's got a good run. Is he going to go for it? Nope. He holds off, plays it safe.
I think now is when the leaders on the mediums will start to stretch their legs, start to push a little bit harder, now that they're not behind the soft runners.
For sure. We don't know how much the dirty air is affecting them, of course. We don't know what kind of setups they're running, where if cornering speed is really important for them compared to straight line. But tell you what, Villeneuve and Marchena are still really close together. So it's going to be tight when Joe and Lewicki decide to pit. Of course, we all know the undercut very strong in this game. Of course, as Ramsey stated, DRS and ERS and slipstream are almost essential to stay within a driver who's ahead of you, because you could be 5-6 tenths quicker than a driver ahead of you, but if that driver has ERS and DRS and you don't, you're probably not going to be able to catch up to them. Which, I don't know, some people may like that, some people may find it a bad game design, maybe it's realistic, maybe it's not. But as of right now, it does seem to be a couple of... Oh, and Tar Heels.
Yeah, Tar Heels and Butler going side by side into one.
Yeah, it looks like Tar Heels came out a little bit worse for wear. They managed to keep the cars on track. So you can see what the pit stop did for Craig. He's 10 seconds back of Villeneuve and Marchena, when I believe before the pit stops he was only about 4. Of course, he did have to get his wing changed. So we'll see if those hards are able to maybe pull some pace in the later stages of the race. But as of right now, all eyes are on Joe and Lewicki, our current leaders. Rusty's 6 seconds back of his teammate, and Butler 8 seconds back of Rusty. It looks like Joe is very, very good at managing his ERS, at least compared to Lewicki. He's able to use it when it's needed. Maybe Lewicki is running a much higher downforce setup, as even with DRS, he actually lost time to Joe, about a tenth and a half. Joe did use a little bit of ERS, but
there was no battery for Lewicki on that attempt, so not surprised he lost out a little.
Tar Heels going side by side with Butler again into turn 1. This time Tar Heels comes out on top. I hope they don't make that a trend, because that corner is not the easiest to pass on. Marchena and Villeneuve both following each other as they were. Yeah, it does seem like Joe is able to gain a lot more ERS throughout the rest of the lap. Lewicki does seem to use his relatively throughout the lap, so it may be helping with pure pace throughout the lap, but when it comes to the DRS straight, Joe is able to manage it a lot better and keep Lewicki behind.
I imagine Joe has a lot higher engine braking in his setup, able to regenerate a lot more ERS throughout the lap. That's what it appears anyway.
That is the competitive way for it in this race, and Lewicki bites the bullet into the pit lane. So he is the next of the leaders to pit. Had a relatively slow pit stop, though. He came into that pit very slowly. He's probably going to lose a lot of time to that. Puts on the softs, so he's going to have to go 16 laps on the softs. That's going to be pushing it.
That's a bold strategy.
Very bold. Marchena sets the fastest lap of the race. Did get by Villeneuve. And both drivers are going to be ahead of Lewicki by around a couple seconds, I believe. Going to be around 2. Lewicki's going to have to get those tires warmed up as well. And with the 3-second time penalty, it's not looking great for Lewicki currently, and by the end of the race, those softs are not going to have a fun time.
The wear is going to be astronomical. Like, this could be they're at 90% by the end of the race.
Funnily enough, I think the last Portugal race of F123, I did that in Tier 1 or midweek, where
that sounds familiar, actually.
I ran those softs to like 21, 22 laps, and they were at like 90-ish% at the end of the race. But the wear on the softs are a lot more on this race, or on this track, or this game, than 23. The 23, the softs were able to last a lot longer. So we'll see how Lewicki manages those tires, but I assume it's not going to be easy. Currently a Sauber 1-2, but of course both of them have not pitted. Butler into the pit lane now. He's going to throw on, I assume, the softs. Probably going to follow the order of the other drivers. Lewicki is managing to pull. He's pulled around 7 tenths to Villeneuve and Marchena already, so the softs are definitely quicker, but of course, It's going to be very difficult to get by both of them, as whatever second medium driver is going to have DRS. Although Lewecki got a very good run. Not going to be able to do anything about it just yet. Oh, Villeneuve has a rough exit. Lewecki's going to definitely want to try and make this move. Villeneuve does look to back out of it a little bit, so this is going to make it a lot easier for Lewecki to get past Marchena now.
Big snap from Villeneuve on the uphill section in turn 8. It was massive snap.
Yep, still manages to stay within DRS. I assume Joe seems to be feeling himself pretty decently with these mediums, so I think he's going to try and push their lifespan a little bit. Probably pit in the next 1 or 2 laps. Rusty seems to be following his teammate. Tar Heels will, of course, have to pit as well. So around... what's the gap to the leaders? Around 17-ish seconds? 17 to 21. So I don't think Joe... oh, and Lewecki a 1:18.9, and he's making the move on Marchena. Your current fastest lap of the race. First driver to get into the 1:18s. Lewecki just holding off. Marchena may have a gap. Yeah, he might have a gap of around 5 to 7 seconds, but... I mean, Joe's looked quick, but he hasn't looked as pure dominance quick that he's had in a couple of races, so we'll see what Joe's able to do on the softs in free air.
Yeah, I still think he's hold back a bit on the mediums, so I think once he's switched over, Joe will unleash his full pace.
Will be exciting to see that. Try and see Joe maybe catch the drivers that are currently net ahead of him after his pit stop. And it looks like Joe is in. Into the pit he comes. Don't get a speeding penalty. Manages to slow down the car. Looks like Rusty is going to follow him in. An 8-second gap should be plenty to not have any drivers get held up by their teammate. Is Tar Heels going to bite the bullet? Nope. Tar Heels is going to stay out that extra lap. Is Highscran going to? Yes, he is. Lewecki having DRS on Highscran. He's going to make the move. Oh, Lewecki had to get on the brakes hard there. Almost lost the car. Yep, Joe's got a much smaller gap. Just under 2 seconds now, or just over 2 seconds between Marchena and Joe. Marchena getting by Highscran. It's not over just yet, Ramsey. Lewecki is technically the leader. He does have that 3-second time penalty, but he's going at a solid pace right now. And of course, it did look like Joe was struggling a little bit to get past cars. So if Villeneuve and Marchena are able to help each other out, they can definitely keep Joe behind, but it's not going to be easy. As of right now, though, I don't think any drivers, and I mean, Joe could just finish here realistically if he wanted. Of course, he's not going to do that. This is going to be interesting. We're going to go on board with Joe here. 3 wide. As they go into it, Highscran's going to let off a little bit. I'm definitely thinking Joe's going to want to try and make this move. He backs out of it.
Yeah, wise decision there.
Yeah, you don't need to end your race just like that. Stay on board here, get rid of the crap on the camera, and see if Joe can maybe make the move on Villeneuve. Gets Villeneuve to go defensive. He's going to have a better run out of turn 5. Villeneuve a little bit of a snap. Villeneuve manages to hold on. Joe's definitely going to not want to get held up by Villeneuve as long as possible here. Definitely needs to get the move done this lap. Marchena managed to break DRS to Villeneuve, so he's fighting up there with Lewecki. Into Sector 3 we go. Joe just hanging on to the butt of Villeneuve. Not sure what the ERS rates are at. Joe's looks decently good. He's going to push it here. He'll have ERS and DRS. I don't think Villeneuve's going to fight this too much. Oh, it looks like he is. Villeneuve has pretty good straight line speed, but Joe manages to get the move done into P4, and now a 3-second gap to Marchena. Rusty just getting past Heiskran as Heiskran is into the pits. So now Marchena on the back of Lewicki, and Tar Heels has still not pitted.
Yeah, this is quite the long stint from Tar Heels. I wonder if he's just
Tar Heels
on
praying for a
something to
safety
happen.
car?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's not looking likely as of right now. And this is gonna probably drop him to around where Craig and Butler are. And it looks like those hards were just not the move for Craig. 5 seconds back of Rusty after they were basically side by side the entire first half of the race. And Joe still 2.5 seconds back of Marchena. Hasn't put too much of a gap, and he's probably going to lose a decent amount of time to Marchena due to the DRS with Lewicki. We'll see if Joe's able to get a really strong couple of laps here to try and pull that gap in. Tar Heels just getting past, but he's fighting it, but he's holding up his teammate a little bit. It lets him by. That's probably going to...
I'm very surprised that Tar Heels is still out there. I thought he was... I thought lap 20 was probably the best spot to switch over to the softs, but...
Maybe he's not confident in the length of those tires lasting. I'm not sure, but that has brought Joe a lot closer to Marchena. But of course, he's going to have to get by Tar Heels now. And I mean, Tar Heels is holding him up quite a bit. Like, he probably just lost so much time through that sector alone, just being stuck behind that Red Bull. Yeah, Joe just can't get by him. Marchena's almost 3 seconds ahead again. Definitely a big team play if this was Tar Heels was maybe going for. I don't think that was the overall plan, but he's definitely making it work for his teammate, holding up his championship and race rival. Now down to 3.3 seconds. Showed just how much Tar Heels was able to hold up Joe, but now he decides to pit. He did his teamwork job, and now this has put Joe under pressure from Villeneuve, who goes back past. And that was just a disastrous lap and a half for Joe. Went from around 2 seconds back of Marchena to 3.3 and behind Villeneuve. Oh, and Lewicki with another 3-second time penalty. He currently holds fastest lap, but that is going to put him down to P4 if the time stays similar. Joe trying to fight Villeneuve. We saw these two basically 2 laps ago doing the same thing. Joe was able to get by, but now Villeneuve is not making it easy with 10 laps to go. Marchena on the back of Lewicki as well. Those softs are probably starting to lose a little bit of grip. Joe's definitely going to have to go for the move here. He's going to have to try and gain as much pace as he can down this straight. But we know Villeneuve's not going to make it easy, and a 5/10 gap is a lot to make up. He's going to go for it. Joe's using every bit of ERS he can. He's brought it to 3/10. He's brought it to 2. He's going for the move. He gets it done. Villeneuve not making it easy, forcing pressure on him. But now Joe back to 2 seconds of his rival Marchena. He's got plenty of time to get back up to Marchena, but those softs are going to lose their grip little bit by little bit. Tell you what, I think I've been most impressed by Marchena this race. We're did he start? Yeah, he started P4. He was behind Joe. It looked like he was going to be able to keep up with them, but I'm relatively impressed by Marchena's pace this race. He did show it in Tier 1, though. I believe he got like P6 in the Tier 1 race.
Yep, that's right.
So Marchena's showing some strong pace. Joe is catching up a little bit.
The defense Marchena was able to show earlier, defending into, I believe that's turn 5.
For sure, and Marchena, if lead of the race, Loecki had no ERS. Easy pass from Marchena, and now Marchena has another buffer between him and Joe. And this is probably gonna be the biggest block for Joe, because Loecki's on 3-lap older softs, but it's not gonna be huge. And Tar Heels steals fastest lap for the Red Bulls, a 1:18.8. That is an extra 4 points if he's able to hold on to that. Going to be very big for the championship fight in a whole. We're not entirely sure the gaps if they manage to finish in these current positions, but definitely 4 points that Tar Heels is going to want to hold on to. And he is P7, 5 seconds back at Craig, so maybe there's something there for Tar Heels. Maybe he'll be able to get back up to the rear of Craig. Joe's so close to DRS, but just out of it. He's hoping maybe Loecki and Marchena fight a little bit here, but Loecki's 6% ERS. Nothing in the tank. He is very close. He's not going to go for the move. Red Bull are currently outscoring Kick by 14 points. They need 22 to pass their rivals, because they don't have, I don't believe they have the tiebreaker for wins. I do believe Joe holds that strongly enough for Sauber.
Yeah, Marchena can't do much more in the points battle.
No, but Tar Heels can.
Tar Heels. It's gonna have to be Tar Heels.
He's pulled around a second to Craig already. So Tar Heels has gotten fastest lap, but he's got to get by Craig. And I don't think getting by Craig will be enough. Oh, but Craig with a 3-second time penalty. That will basically put Tar Heels ahead of him regardless. Oh, yeah, and Loecki with his penalty, the points gap is actually a lot larger than we thought.
Yeah. It looks like really Villeneuve might have to come into play for Red Bull to even have a shot. I think Villeneuve might have to get back to Joe. Villeneuve
might have to get back up to Joe and pass him. Rusty will probably have to make a mistake to get anywhere near to getting past. So Marchena doing everything. Tar Heels now down to 2.5 seconds back of Craig. He's got that position net, but he's definitely going to want to make it on track to secure it. Joe just holding on to 1.2 seconds, not able to get within DRS of the cars ahead of him. There would have to be either a nightmare for Sauber or just something astronomical for Red Bull to get back in to the points gap that they need to take the constructors. But with basically 5-ish laps to go, it's not going to be easy. Tar Heels now 2 seconds back of Craig. Looks like he's going to be able to get Craig within the next 2 laps. Joe now 1 second back. He doesn't have DRS. Loecki is not able to manage his ERS well enough to try and make a move on Marchena. Out of everyone here, Rusty probably has the best tires in the top 5. Joe is now within that important DRS 1 second. So he has managed to pull that gap, and it looks like Lewecki's definitely struggling on those 12-lap old softs. He's probably hit around the 50% mark. So those tires are definitely screeching a little bit, and he's still got 4 laps to go. I think this is a matter of when rather than if Joe gets past Lewecki here. He's out of DRS as well. Marchena's pulled a 1.3 second gap. Tar Heels now down to a second back of Craig, almost a second gain throughout that lap. Butler managing to stay ahead of Heiskram, but he does have that 3-second time penalty. Joe is going to go for the move on Lewecki. He's going to have much bigger straight line speed as we've seen throughout this race. Going to be a fairly easy move for the Sauber driver, and this makes it even worse for the Red Bull drivers to try and get within that points gap they need to take the constructors. Tar Heels is actually right on the back of Craig. He's already basically got the move done before the start straight line. But they're side by side. Craig isn't making it easy. Holds on to it as of right now.
What a defense. Just saying, screw you. You might actually have the position because of the timing page, but I'm not going to give it to you on track.
Yep. But it does look like Tar Heels with DRS. Oh, it's still going to be hard. He's going to try and outbrake Craig. Craig's going to slam the door.
Just emptying the battery, just out of spite.
Yep.
I love
Craig's
it. Craig's like,
I'm not making this easy. You want to get past me, you get past me legit. What a battle between these two. It's almost like turn 5 is Craig's favorite corner to battle with somebody. He did it with Rusty earlier, and now he's doing it with Tar Heels. But as we go back to the front, Joe around 1 second back of Marchena. He has gained a little bit of pace. He's down to under a second. Lewecki's back to 1.6. Villeneuve's getting pretty close, but of course, with the 6 seconds, Villeneuve will get past him regardless. Of course, Rusty, a little bit of no man's land. Tar Heels going for the move again. Craig with no ERS is not going to be able to have any kind of fight against Tar Heels there, and Tar Heels finally gets the move done. But now, with 2.5 laps left, can Joe make a push for the win of the race? He's now down to 9/10. He will have the
Oh,
and Marchena, big slip up, loses almost 6/10, and now this is giving ample opportunity to Joe to maybe make the move this lap. Marchena does have a good amount of ERS saved. He's probably going to burn it as they enter the final corner, starting 2 laps to go. Joe is using all of it. He's going for the move side by side. I think Marchena is letting him have it, and he's going to have another go next lap. Oh, but Marchena does look to be struggling a little bit. He's going to have to try and stay within DRS. Villeneuve on the rear of Lewecki as well. Looks like we're going to have a 4-car battle for P1 and P3 coming down to the final lap. This is going to be close. This is going to come down to ERS saving and usage. How big of a gap either driver can put on the other. Joe holding on. Heiskran with a 3-second time penalty. That's going to cost him because he now won't be able to get past Butler just on time alone.
I think Marchena's in the better spot now, just with the ERS.
Oh, he is.
He has 2 choices for DRS. He could play it safe on the first one and go for the second one, and just save up some battery. Or
I tell
there's so many
you
options
what,
available to him.
Joe has managed to save a lot of ERS, though. He was down almost none. Looks like Marchena's going to play it safe and maybe go for it. Oh, he's burning all of it. I think he timed it a bit too late. Oh, he thought about it. Marchena's going to have to go for it coming to the DRS zone here, or maybe at the end of the lap, but he's going to have to be very close. Can he do it? He's too far back to make a move. Oh, he goes for it anyway! Big dive bomb from Marchena, and Joe taps the back of the Red Bull.
There's some damage there.
There was definitely damage, but he's managed to keep both front end plates. A huge, ambitious move from Marchena. Wasn't able to make it stick, and now Joe holds the position. And speaking of Joe, starting his final sector of the race, started the season ambitiously. He thought he'd have a chance at the championship. He thought his pace was strong. As he comes through the final two corners, the man who has won 4 races this season is about to make it 5, but most importantly, the man in the Sauber is about to secure his first championship in PRL. Joe Bidome is your Tier 2 championship, and Sauber is your Constructors Champions for Tier 2 in Season 11. After a fantastic final race, Marchena, Villeneuve, Lewicki, they gave it their all, but it was not enough to beat the man in the Sauber. He is your Tier 2 championship winner. Whew, what a race. What a championship. I don't think anybody can argue that Joe was unwilling to win that one. He was the fastest man all season, and he showed it today. Showed it that no matter who shows extra pace at certain tracks, he's going to be there to fight for the win, and he won it today. That man on the podium, the highest step. The Brit brings it back home. Oh, but he's going to be happy about that one. Yeah, Craig, that was quite the battle with Tar Heels. Me and Hoop enjoyed that one. Oh, I'd love to do interviews, but I should have told them ahead of time, because we don't really know who's ahead of who now, right? Where did Tar Heels finish? I do think Villeneuve is going to take P2 in the championship from this, even with the fastest lap for Tar Heels. I think that P3 over P6 is definitely going to take it. You're welcome,
I think it's,
Joe.
Let's see. I think it's Villeneuve, and then really Marchena might have ended up in third after all of this.
Yeah, Tar Heels has what, a 18-point advantage at the start of this race, and Marchena just got P2. Yeah, so it looks like Tar Heels is going to drop from P2 to P4 in the championship. Of course, if there's any steward findings to maybe adjust the lineup. And I don't think we'd be able to interview Joe, because I do believe he's on PC. But man, what a championship. Once again, congratulations to Joe. He gave it his all. He gave himself a strong points lead coming into the final race. Everyone knew the double points weekend was decisive. Some people thought it was great. Some people thought it would put the championship in too much of an ordeal at the end of the race or at the end of the season, but it does look like each driver in their deserved or in their specific championship got the win. Joe, I think, was the most deserving driver to win the championship this season. Bass in Tier 1 was definitely most deserving. Morris made it close, but Bass managed to beat his Norwegian rival finally. But Yeah, I
Finally.
think finally. I think we're going to call it there, Mr. Hoop, unless you have any other thoughts.
That was just a excellent campaign all around from drivers in both of the Sunday tiers.
For
Not
sure.
quite as strong of a championship battle in midweek, thanks, Gord. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
hoping we'll have a good turnout again next season, and maybe we'll get a lot more races broadcasted to everyone on the internet. So
For sure. And I mean, for those who are not in the know and are maybe just watching, PRL will be dropping to one tier on Sunday. So the drivers who are wanting to be full time in Tier 1 and Tier 2 will be mixed in together to create a very packed one division. Of course, Tier 1 itself has around 15 reserves this upcoming season. I'm not sure how many Tier 2 has, but for how many drivers that are going to be able to race in that one division, hopefully we'll see plenty of full grids. And of course, don't forget to check out midweek's finale. They will be racing this Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I do believe the final race is at Jeddah, so a very tricky track. It's you're gonna need some strong pace and some very good stability driving to be able to finish that race. So we will see what happens in the standings for midweek. Of course, Hoop already mentioned that the championship has been decided, but the constructors and P2 to anywhere below is still up for grabs. So don't forget to check that out for PRL. I have been your host alongside with Hoop, and we will see you guys next week. Ciao, ciao.